the legendary Steve Kim. Let's give him a round of applause. Steve, what's going on, man?
Hello, good morning. It's very cold out here in Los Angeles. It's wet.
You sound robotic. You sound robotic.
Oh, I sound robotic. How do I sound now?
Go ahead, say it. Talk again.
How do I sound now?
You still sound a little bit robotic. You want to try to call back or get a new position?
Yeah, how about this? Why don't I call you a regular line? I see the 530 number. Let me call that right now.
Okay.
All right, bye.
All right, he's going to call back. Steve Kim is going to call back. Yeah, I know. All jokes aside, I like what Wilder doing. I like the fact that he's over there in the Middle East. Shit, I think a lot of fighters, a lot of you American fighters, y'all better wisen up. Devin Haney was over there. Who else was over there? Of course, Mike Tyson was over there, but he's not boxing anymore. Jake Paul and Tommy Fury. Yeah, we know that's social media boxing, but those guys, I'm pretty sure they might do about 1 million pay-per-view buys. I'm gonna tell you why I say that. Because hold on, guys. Hold on, guys. Caller, what's your name? Where you calling from?
It's Steve Kim on his Obama phone. What's going on?
Steve, you sound a whole lot better, man. Steve Kim, talk to me, fam.
I'm doing well. Great to have you join me, or me join you on your show. By the way, yesterday, great job. I'm going to call you the Black Don Dunphy. Your blow-by-blow call of Paul Fury. It almost had me buying the fight. I'm like, God, I'm missing a hell of a fight here with this crab in a bucket referee. He's making things fun out there. I was like, you know what? No. Be disciplined. I'm gonna listen to Coach. Coach is making this a fight of the millennium. Ali Frazier, Barrero Morales, Daddy Ward. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I missing? And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Coach is up and around here. He's trying to take my money. But anyway, great to join you, Coach, man. How you doing?
Hey, Steve. Boy, I had so much fun last night calling that fight, bro. Because I'm a big fan of Jake the Snake Paul. I felt like he got robbed. I was like, hey, Tommy Fury, man. I'm not going to, honestly, all jokes aside, I felt like Tommy Fury was carrying Jake Paul. Now look at it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Me and Whitlock talked about it for today's show about, is this the end of this whole thing? I don't think it's the end, but I think it's different now that he lost. Don't you think? That's kind of the allure is how far could he go with this?
Yeah. How far can he go with this? Steve, I read your article. This is a really, really good article. The article that I have on the screen, guys, Steve Kim wrote this article. As you can see a picture of Terence Crawford and Errol Spence. And the title is Boxing is Broken. And, me being a copywriter, that struck a chord with me. I said, I really like this. Boxing is broken. That caught my, even with the pictures. I said, let me read this article. I read it. And you said some very, very interesting things. How long did it take you to write this article?
This thing took me a couple of hours. The way I write the articles, and this is more of an op-ed. I didn't have a lot of quotes, so sometimes when I write an article, Coach, getting the interviews and then transcribing them word for word so you don't misquote somebody actually takes more time than the actual typing out, just putting the pen to pad, if you will. And this is something that we talked about. The genesis of this happened, Coach. We are at field trainings for our monthly boxing dinner. I get together with writers, people in the business, trainers, managers. Every once in a while, a couple of fighters will join us. And when you're in L.A., Coach, you are definitely going to get red carpet treatment at field trainings. We're going to have a good time there, eat like kings, drink like winos. But anyway, so Doug Fisher said, Steve, we're starting a series this year about how can we improve boxing. And he goes, and Doug said, look, you'd probably be the perfect guy to write it if you're interested. And I said, sure. So those other things we're going to talk about, that's only chapter 1. So we'll talk about that. But there's some other ideas that I have because you're never going to fix boxing. But clear in the first opening paragraph that we're trying to improve boxing, which will always be flawed. And look, when I say boxing is broken, I didn't really come up with that. That was kind of like Doug Fisher's idea. Also, in terms of the graphics, I thought those graphics were excellent. They are done by Brian Hardy. So I got to give credit where credit is due. I think graphically it looks very good.
Very good.
I know some people disagree with the article, but again, a lot of this is just based on historical facts and how I believe these things played out and how these things can be remedied.
You know what, Steve? It's one thing I really, really agree with as it relates to this article. Because on YouTube, you have social media boxing fans, and I don't like to categorize social media boxing fans in the bucket with boxing fans. Boxing fans, someone like yourself, you've been in the game for a long time. You know the historical aspects of boxing. There's a lot that you do know. You can actually break down fight film, a lot of the classic fights. You know the backstories of a lot of this stuff. Social media boxing fans go off with sound bites, pictures, images. What I notice about social media boxing fans, they are fans of networks and promoters. And I have proof because I looked at many different platforms, and all they talk about is if you're not with a certain promoter or a certain network, then you're nobody. If you are a certain race or ethnicity or the same race or ethnicity as the individuals, if you're not with the certain network or a certain advisory company, they call you different racial names and stuff like that they ordinarily that they would get offended by if someone said that was of the opposite race. So what I noticed, I said, you know what, man? And that's what made me come up with my commandments with the help of some of the subscribers. I said, you know what, man? These are not boxing fans. These are fans of promotional companies and networks. These guys don't want to see the best fighters. They want to see fights on certain networks. And if you're not with that particular network, then they defecate on anything other than that, right? And they bring other issues in boxing that has nothing to do with boxing. You get what I'm saying? Racial issues, critical race theories, there's a whole lot of stuff going on, but that's a whole nother can of worms. I don't want to open that up. But I wanted to ask you this. What got me was you had part one. You say boxing is broken. How do we fix it? You said the network divide. Break that down for all of those who may say, tell your fighter to sign the contract. This fighter decking, he's scared of my fighter, yada, 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 yada. Break down what is the network divide in your opinion?
Yeah, Coach, the network divide is just that. What we have with the modern day boxing business, and this has gone on for a while, but it's never really been as bad as it has been the last, let's say, 5 to 10 years. Basically, there are three or four galaxies of boxing. There's the PBC galaxy, which is on Showtime now, and it was on Fox and then various other networks, but they were very exclusive to their galaxy. Top Ranked Galaxy was obviously ESPN. Golden Boys was the Zone. And then you had Matchroom, which is the Zone, and for a long time it was Sky Sports. So what happens is, if you are a top-ranked fighter, you're only going to fight on ESPN for the most part against other fighters at Top Rank or against smaller promoters who do not have a network deal. And I've written about this for a while, that in a perfect world, every network would just say, we have XYZ amount of dollars for boxing, but we are not giving all of our gates to one promoter. In other words, we want A versus B, best matchup possible. We don't give a damn who your promoter is. So let me give you an example. Roy Jones in the 90s was this incredible fighter, best fighter in the world. The problem was, most of the like Joe Calzaghe, Nigel Benn, Steve Collins, Chris Eubank were all with Showtime because they were aligned with, I believe, Frank Warren and or Don King. So this is the problem. While Roy Jones was one of the pillars of HBO, he was basically the Sopranos of their boxing franchise. He was that important. He was going to have to face all his missed mandatories, but none of the names I mentioned, because there was no way either side was going to send another guy to the other side of the network. Now, Coach, this is the funniest thing. I learned something here. So I was talking to Kerry Davis, who at that point was probably the second or third in charge at HBO Sports. He was a big fan of Roy Jones, and we used to argue all the time about the Roy Jones mystique, and is he overrated? Is he protected? And he said, Steve, you're absolutely right. Joe Calzaghe would be his best fight. It's an unbelievable fight. The problem is, from a corporate standpoint, if we allow him to fight on Showtime, we would have to answer to our bosses, and they would ask, hey, guys, how come the past 15, 20 fights when we spent $50 million on this guy, why is his best fight on another network? And it happens a lot. Floyd Mayweather, when he was at 130, he, I thought, was an excellent fighter. Problem was, he was never going to be able to face the likes of Acelino Friatis and Joel Casamayor because they were ensconced at Showtime.
Right.
So this is really nothing new. And let me give you more of a common example of how a network deal and a promoter can shield a fighter from tough fights because they have a network deal and one doesn't. I think you and I agree. We would much rather see Jose Ramirez fight Regis Prograis in his mandatory rather than Richard Comey, right?
Right.
We're in agreement on that, right?
Absolutely.
Well, here's the problem. Regis Prograis is with Probellum, who has no TV deal, but Jose Ramirez is with Top Rank. Top Rank had a date, and they said, you know what, Jose? Forget that Prograis. A little bit too dangerous, a little bit too tough, maybe cost a little too much. You could fight Richard Comey on one of our dates. See what the problem is with that? You're not getting the best fight. You're getting the best fight that Top Rank is willing to make for ESPN. And meanwhile, Regis Prograis, who I believe is an outstanding fighter, cannot get a fight. Now, let me give you an example, though, of some exceptions. About 3-4 years ago, when the Zone had $1 billion in their coffers and they're throwing out money like it was never going to run out, which it did, the Maurice Hooker was a matchroom fighter, right? They signed him to a deal.
I remember that.
They offered Jose Ramirez and Top Rank so much money that even Bob Arum said, we can't allow you or us to turn this down. Go ahead, go on the Zone, go get that other belt and bring it back to ESPN because that was like a $4 million payday. And so even Bob Arum said, look, okay, forget about it. Don't worry about it. Just come back to ESPN with 2 belts, do your job. It does happen once in a while. And one of the other theories that I'm going to have, and I know some of you fans and your great listeners are not going to like this, I actually think pay-per-view is needed. It's a necessary evil, and I'll explain why. Because in situations like Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia, without a pay-per-view platform where everyone can share and make some money,
right?
How do you do that fight?
Yeah, I see what you're saying, because in order for the fighters to get the type of money that they want, you're going to have to put it on pay-per-view because they're not going to fight for
right. Think about it.
Yeah.
Coach, Don King and Bob Arum for years hated each other. That was like spy versus spy in Mad Magazine. But when it came down to make Trinidad De La Hoya, they didn't care about the networks. They said, okay, this thing's big enough to be pay-per-view. Let's do this. Let's cut up the cash. Let's make a lot of money. And so that's where the pay-per-view platform is actually very valuable. The problem is 2 things. Number one, there's simply too many pay-per-views. We've lowered the bar on what is a pay-per-view fight. And number 2, and I'm going to talk about this, these pay-per-views need to be much closer to $50 than $80.
Right. That I'm not going to lie. That was one of the motivating factors why I bought that fight last night. Jake Paul, I said it's only $50. And then plus I do pay for ESPN. I have the app, the ESPN Plus or whatever. I pay for that. It's like $7.99 or something a month or $10 something a month. I said, let me go ahead and pay. I'll pay for that fight. It was only $50.
You know what's interesting? Coach, that's interesting you say that because I spoke to Bob Arum on Friday, had to discuss a few things. And he was the promoter of this event stateside, Top Rank, right? Their branding was all over it.
Right.
He actually said to me, he goes, Steve, we're only going with the $50 price point for this because we're going to do a test run here. Does a lower price actually equate to more buys? So if this thing does well, and I don't know what the real projections are, but if it exceeds expectations or hits certain benchmarks, I have a feeling that some of the upcoming Top Rank events may be a little bit less than they were, let's say, the last couple of years.
Okay. And then the thing is, I think Top Rank will probably be more economical with how they do pay-per-views. Explain this to me. How did ESPN, Top Rank, become a part of this event that happened in Saudi Arabia yesterday with Jake Paul and Tommy Fury?
Well, they probably just made a deal for the platform. I mean, look, you're going to need someone to actually promote the event, which means sending out press releases, which means sending out social media things, and there's a natural machine. Remember this, ESPN and ESPN Plus are basically aligned with Top Rank.
Okay.
So if you want to be on that platform and have that type of push, and look, Top Rank has a really professional staff of social media in terms of a whole team, publicists that know how to get to certain people. It's one thing to be independent. The problem with being independent is you're actually on an island by yourself, and you may not have the reach. So I don't know what the exact deal was on this, but I think that Top Rank made a deal because they're thinking, you know what? We can make some money here. We put no money into this. Think about this. Jake Paul has never actually fought for a traditional promoter, right? He's made deals with networks. He's been on Showtime before,
right? But
I just think Top Rank wanted to kind of get into this because let's face it, look at Bob Arum's history. He's actually done stuff like Evil Knievel. So when we say he's a promoter, it's not just boxing. I don't think that Bob Arum has any interest in social media boxers. What he has interest is in making money.
Making money, yep, absolutely. That's the bottom line. Steve, you
and Coach, it's really interesting. Going back to my article, a large focus of it was on Spence-Crawford. Now, we know what's happened the last 6 months, and you can't say that it's necessarily a network divide.
Right.
Because Terence Crawford has been a free agent since November of 2021 after he beat Sean Porter, right? So Here's the problem, though. Sean Spence blurted out several years ago, you're on the wrong side of the street.
Right.
Well, that's the divide that I'm talking about. Because what happened is that Sean Spence, given that he was Al Heyman
you mean Errol Spence. Errol Spence.
Excuse me, yes. Errol Spence was on the PBC Al Heyman side of the street, which meant either Fox or Showtime.
Right.
Terence Crawford was part of the Top Rank Galaxy, which meant he was specifically on ESPN. Now, this is what took place. Both fighters were actually exorbitantly paid because they were not necessarily paying for the quality of fights all the time. They were paying for exclusivity. I asked someone at Top Rank a couple years ago when they were having issues with Crawford, when Crawford was making some comments that he wasn't promoted correctly, and it came out that his actual minimum was $3.5 million per fight, but he was making more than that, which surprised a lot of people.
Right.
So I asked someone at Top Rank, I said, well, why'd you pay him that much? He's not really worth that much. He said, Steve, you have to understand, when we signed him in the fall of 2018, we were just beginning our deal with ESPN.
Okay.
The Zone was trying to sign everybody, so we had to lock up our guy. In other words, you had to overpay your own stable to keep him on your own network. And so that became a flaw. You're not paying for the quality of fighter or fight. You're paying to keep this guy right on your network. That goes for everybody, not just Top Rank, not just Eddie Hearn and Matchroom, not just PBC. So what happens is every fighter basically is now overpaid. So now Spence and Crawford are making a lot of money for fighting guys that, whatever. Here's the problem. So when they come together, and I told you this about a year and a half ago, here's the problem. When you get overpaid for every other fight, when it comes down to the fight that you want, those guys are really going to want to be overpaid.
Yeah.
Because there was not an economic reality at play.
Right. You know what, Steve? You hit the nail right on the head because I see the argument all the time. You hear people online saying that, yeah, man, Crawford was overpaid in this fight and yada, 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 yada. I'm like, yeah, but Errol Spence is overpaid as well. It's not just one guy. Like Matchroom was overpaying fighters as well. So basically, all of these different promotional companies, well, PBC is an advisory company that, you know, quote unquote / promotional, whatever, with promoters. But that company, Top Rank, Matchroom, they was overpaying all of these fighters that's supposed to be star fighters, right? And now that all of these fighters are overpaid, you can't tell these guys, hey, look, we want to reset the market. We want to reset the market.
You can't. They don't want to be the way. Coach, they don't want to be the one to. They'll say, yeah, you got to reset it. Do it in a couple years after I retire.
Yeah.
See, here's the funny thing. Yeah. I'm going to say something that's going to stun you and a lot of your audience. I don't blame Al Heyman specifically for Spence-Crawford not happening.
Yeah,
and I'll tell you why.
No, me neither. I get it now.
It's the system. It's the current system that everyone. Now, you can argue, well, Al Heyman raised the market for all the fighters in 2015 by overpaying his guys. Right. But you know what the truth of the matter is? And I've been told this by people in the business. When the Zone came into business in 2018, guess what? They raised the market even more.
Mm.
And then Top Rank had to overpay their guy. So everyone's kind of to blame here. So, and guess what? Al Heyman is like any other promoter or businessman.
Mm.
They have a right to not lose money in a business proposition. Now, you can argue he's partly to blame for the current ecosystem that exists.
Mm.
You're right. But at the end of the day, guess what? I was told by Top Rank they were kind of relieved to be out of the Crawford business because, number one, they were sick of getting blamed for Crawford not getting the Spence fight. But here's the thing. They didn't want to lose money either if they ever did get the Spence fight made.
Right.
This is a business.
Yeah, I get it. And I was the one blaming Al for a minute, but I get it now. Errol Spence is right. Let me get the super chat out of the way. Shout out to Drew.
Yeah.
Drew said Steve is right. He said Steve is right. That's why Saudis are making deals with fighters and auction the rights to networks who pays the most. Okay, cool. Thank you, Drew.
Hey, Drew, what's going on? Drew, good guy.
Yeah, Drew is a good guy. Yeah. You know, you hit the nail right on the head. So, these fighters have to. You know, the market is going to, and I say this on the show, I say the market is going to have to reset itself, man. These fighters that's getting paid all of this money, you know, like, dude, like none of these guys are on that level. And I say, listen, Crawford Spence, those guys on the same level. I don't care what you say. You can say, you know, one guy may have sold more one pay-per-view over here versus the other one, but none of these guys are huge mega stars like that. You know, on YouTube, on certain YouTube channels, and on Twitter they are, but outside of YouTube channels and Twitter, no, a lot of these guys are doing pretty much down there the same thing. They're not you know, and I know that some of them have a fan base that lives their lives vicariously through their fighter, so they feel like if they hear that they fighter made a certain amount of money or driving a certain car, that particular social media boxing fan is driving that kind of car. I'm making that kind of money as well. But the reality of the situation is none of these guys are really on that level like that. And this is no shade to those fighters, but that's why I say, Steve, I'll be glad when a lot of these old fighters that's in the way right now, I'll be glad when they process out, when they get out of the way. Because I feel like once they get out of the way, we can bring everything back to some type of normalcy. You
know, Coach, that's why when people say Jake Paul is overpaid in a joke, I completely disagree.
Mm-hmm.
He's getting paid what he can derive.
Right.
Look, because he may actually do a lot of pay-per-views, and guess what? Because of his own persona, the brand that he has created, and the work that he puts in on a day-to-day basis that he's done for years, I don't care if he's the worst fighter in the world. I don't care if he can't punch his way out of a wet paper bag. But if he's doing over 500,000 pay-per-views and it looks like it's going to do there's a lot of, let's face it, the Showtime card with Subriel Matias, which I really enjoyed, didn't get any type of publicity coming into last weekend.
It didn't.
We have to be honest about that.
It didn't.
And I think Subriel Matias is a hell of a fighter. No one cared. People did care about Jake Paul. They did care about, and you know what's interesting? And this ties into it, Coach. Another thing keeping a lot of these fights from happening, or what hinders a lot of the negotiations, is that most contracts, or all of them nowadays, have a minimum guarantee for each fighter. So if, let's say you're Spence-Crawford, no matter who you fight, you are guaranteed X, Y, Z. So for Crawford, under his last top-ranked deal, was $3.5 million. So that's a lot of money. Mm-hmm. So the problem is with most pay-per-view events
he was getting paid more than that, though, right? I heard he had a $3.5 million. That was the minimum, but each
minimum.
Fight,
but he got to about 4.5 to 5, and by the time he got to Sean Porter, Top Rank gave him 6 because that was kind of like their last-ditch effort to say, hey, look, do you want to work with us or not? He still got his 6. Terence decided to go his own way. Mm. Now, the problem is, and I read this book called The War.
I have it.
And I told you about the book.
I have it. I had a book right there, The War.
Yeah, great show.
Matter of fact, let me get it so I can show the audience. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, so it's a great book by Don Stradley who talks about the history leading into Hagler-Hearns and how that fight was put together and the context behind the two careers. That book right there, yes. So the thing is, and I asked Bob about this, I said, Bob, I noticed in that fight when it came to Hagler, you never had a set guarantee. You would always figure out what's the opponent, what can we do with this fight, How many people would it draw? Is it a pay-per-view? How much money can I get from HBO? But his offers to Marvin Hagler would fluctuate every single fight. Mm. And I said, well, Bob, was it easier to make deals that way? I asked him this on Friday, and he said, yeah, of course it was. Here's the difference. I never had a long-term deal with Hagler. I just went fight to fight on a handshake. You cannot find fighters today to a deal where it's so open-ended if it is a long-term deal. Because I'll tell you why. Because another promoter will say, hold on. We'll guarantee you $2 million. You can fight King Kong, Godzilla, Steve Kim, or Coach Malachi. And then you're going to lose the fighter. So there's a lot of issues that are layered into this as to why it's difficult to make fights. Now, Coach, here's the other issue, and I mentioned this. Better BF B-Ball is a fight I think most of our audience would love to see, right? That's a great fight.
Right.
You know what the problem with that fight is? That fight's not pay-per-view worthy. It's got two Russian guys. It'll never sell. So here's the problem. Now you're in no man's land. Now you're going to have the zone say, no, we're B-Ball. We've done a lot of B-Ball fights. And then you have Top Rank and ESPN saying, well, no. We've done a lot of better BF fights. We're the bigger platform in the United States. How do you resolve that? See, this is a pretty complicated thing. It's not just the fighters not wanting to fight each other. I think that point is overstated.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the only people who say that a lot is, and I've said it as well. I'm going to tell you why I said it. Let me get the super chat out of the way. Shout out to Swift. Hey, okay. He said, hey, Steve, what are your thoughts on the Skills Challenge promotional initiative out of Saudi Arabia? He said, what do you think conceptually and what will come of it? Before I get to that, I don't want to lose my point. It was something that you just said. What did you say, Steve? About the fighters. The fighters not being afraid of each other, not want to fight each other, that's not it. Now, the reason why I said that I believe that, Al Heyman didn't want this fight with Crawford, and I believe that Spence didn't want it as well. The reason why I said that is because, I'm going to tell you why, because it was a lot of things that Spence said, about the wrong side of the street, wrong promotion of the company. You got to get a belt. Your baby mama got to be bow-legged. Just a whole lot of, it would just seem to be always something, okay, you got to do this now. Now you got to do that now. Now you got to, 70-30, 70-30, and 60-40, 70-30, 80-20, take whatever we give you. It would just seem to be always something, as it relates to this one fighter. When other fights that you've had in the past, you've never said this before in life. So that's why I said that. That's one. But what I use to kind of back up what I was saying, Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia. Now, I don't know Tank. I don't know Ryan. I don't know neither one of those guys. But I'm like, how come neither one of those guys said that you with the wrong network, you're on the wrong side of the street, wrong promotional company, you got to get a belt? How come neither one of them said that it seems that they push their promoters or their handlers to make that fight happen no matter what? And I didn't see that coming from Spence versus what I see coming from Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia. Am I right in that, or am I wrong?
Coach, I think you're absolutely right about that. And I will give Tank and Ryan credit. They both pushed for their fight, and they each had enough profile and power and influence within their companies to really push the issue. Now, with Tank, I believe there's some problems. Look, they want to get him paid before he has to face some legal consequences towards his actions, whatever. I believe with Ryan Garcia, he doesn't want to fight like these lesser fights. He just wants to get paid as much money as possible, and he really pushed the issue. But there is an underlying point that you brought up, Coach. You got to have two fighters who actually press the issue and tell their handlers, you work for me. Yeah. I want this fight. Make it happen. Now, but with that said, those fighters have to have enough power to actually have their promoters and managers say, you know what, you're right. Because a lot of guys don't. A lot of guys are they're happy, or they're just slotted twice a year underneath the promoter's television dates that they have, and that's it. But I think Ryan and Tank are a little bit different. Look, Tank's actually a draw, at least in terms of selling tickets.
That's true.
And then Ryan has a really big following on social media. Now, we're going to find out what that means in terms of commercial value. It's one thing to follow someone on Instagram or TikTok or Twitter, but will you push that button to spend $75 for a night of entertainment on pay-per-view? This is what I find interesting about all these people saying that this fight's going to do over 1 million buys. Coach, it's been kind of proven. Tank Davis has never done more than 200,000 pay-per-view buys. Ryan Garcia's never been on pay-per-view. So I don't know if there's a track record. We're going to make these proclamations that we're going to do 1 million buys. So, that's kind of that's a tough one. Good luck to them. I understand they're getting paid really well.
Yeah.
But they did get the fight. And you know the problem that I have with Errol?
What's that?
I kind of agree with you. Errol, out of the two guys, I thought put more roadblocks in the way of that fight than Terence Crawford.
Yeah. I mean, to this day, I believe that in a lot of his fan base don't feel that way. They feel that, hey, Crawford should have got out on his knees, begged, don't take anything, don't get paid anything. Do what Jamel Tallo said? You need to be quiet, humble yourself, do what Spence tell you to do. You know what I mean? Like they came up with all these different roadblocks. Like I've never seen nothing like this before in my life. Like just you got to know how to do certain things and this and that and yada yada. I'm like, bro, it's just a fight. It's just a fight.
Yeah, and by the way,
yeah.
When Terence Crawford was with Top Rank, I was told more than once that Top Rank said, if we're going to do the Spence-Crawford fight, they understood they were going to probably lose money, but they felt as though they kind of needed to do it just to increase the value of Crawford. What they wanted to do was the same structure for Fury Wilder 2 and 3, which is a joint promotion using both platforms to co-promote the event, and each side pay their own boxer. But for some reason, the PBC balked at it, and I'll tell you why they did. They had a lot more welterweights that were probably more marketable than what Terence Crawford has. Because if you look at the heavyweight division, one of the reasons why Wilder did the Fury fight is I don't think the heavyweight division had nearly as many options for him as welterweight did for Errol Spence.
That's true. That is true. Because all of the heavyweights were not signed. They didn't have all of the heavyweights. I mean, the marquee heavyweights. Steve, address this super chat right here. He said, "Hey, Steve, what are your thoughts on the Skills Challenge promotional initiative out of Saudi Arabia?" That's part one of the question.
What exactly is that? Is that a promotional company, or are they putting together a series of skills challenges?
Yeah.
I do know this with the Middle East. I believe that they will become more and more of a factor in terms of big fights because in this current market with a lot of fighters not being necessarily realistic to the true marketplace, instead of having fights in Las Vegas or let's say Dallas or LA or New York, even though it may not fit, you may have to just stick this in Saudi Arabia, Abu Dhabi, all the places down there that are going to overpay for fights because they look at this as a loss leader. This has a lot to do with the tourism business and also rehabilitating the image of that part of the country. So, but I don't exactly know what the Skills Challenge promotional initiative is, to be honest with you.
All right, Steve. Another thing. Okay, so basically, Saudi Arabia. I saw Deontay Wilder over there, and Deontay Wilder was saying that, hey man, Saudi Arabia is pretty much is where it's at right now. They're putting the money up for the fights. They're doing, they're putting the money up for the fights and stuff like that. And him and Shelly Finkel were over there. He said they've been negotiating, trying to do business over there, negotiate deals and stuff like that. And it seems like in the interview, Wilder was very, very sincere. It was as though he had an epiphany. He's on the back nine of his career. He's 38, 39 years old right now. Do you think that some of the American boxing, some of the fighters over here in America, will they wake up out of their delusion and realize, is it just me saying this? I say that the power structure has shifted from making big, huge fights in America, though the heydays of Vegas and the Mike Tyson and the Floyd Mayweathers and the Manny Pacquiao's and Oscar De La Hoyas. To me, it seems that that is pretty much going to be damn near a thing of the past. They're just saying to me. What say you?
Coach, look, the United States will always get its share of big fights because we still have casinos that spend a lot of money to buy fights, and we still have networks that make pretty good amounts of investment. Although it's going to be interesting to see the status of Showtime and Paramount moving forward. I've heard some interesting things about what they might do. I don't think they're going to get completely out of the boxing business. They just may do it at a lower cost, lower level of shows. Mm-hmm. But look, I'm going to repeat myself. Yes, I do think the Middle East remains an option for a lot of fights, or certain fights, because they don't want every fight. They want a certain A-level, marquee level of fights. And Eddie Hearn, I believe, has a contract to bring 3 or 4 events a year. So right there, you already know fights like Bivol and Ramirez, which took place in November, they're going to get those level of fights. We've already seen Anthony Joshua there. And Deontay Wilder, in my view, has had a come-to-Jesus moment. There's no doubt about it. Mm-hmm. He probably will never admit it publicly, but in the back of his mind, he's thinking, I should have signed that deal with the Zone to fight Anthony Joshua for over $100 million. That money, from what I understand, was guaranteed. But again, and let's go back to my article, Deontay Wilder was not allowed to take that deal, not for his own good, but to protect Al Heyman's relationship with a network, or the networks that were aligned with the PBC back then.
Wow.
So
it had nothing to do with the benefit of Deontay Wilder. Wilder is a fighter.
Think about it. If you're Coach Malachi Williams and you have a promotional stable of 3 or 4 of the best fighters, and you're looking to make a television deal, and you're in that office in New York or LA, one of the first things that you have to sell to me as a network, if I want to work with Coach Malachi Promotions, is okay. Well, who do you have under your stable? So when Al Heyman and the PBC, and they already had networks. The problem is you got to stock those networks with real, legitimate attractions. And I don't care what anyone says about Deontay Wilder. Mm. He's an attraction.
Yeah, he is.
I actually appreciate the fact that when Deontay Wilder fought, no matter what his flaws were, or no matter what the imperfections were, shit happened. It was fun. Deontay Wilder has never given me a boring night of fighting. Never. I appreciate that. So, but, and if even though Al Heyman was quote unquote the advisor, he could not actually do what's best for Deontay by letting him go to the Zone, because it would have weakened the PBC and his network. That's the truth of why that decision. It's not even about ducking AJ or any of that. That's really not the case, to be honest with you.
Yeah, shout out to Drew. I did see your super chat, Drew. You said we'll have stars like Roland. He said we'll have stars like Rolando there. He said will Davis Garcia have stars like Ronaldo there. Yeah. I got you, Drew. Let's see. Hold on, we got another super chat, Steve. Swift said that the Skills Challenge is an initiative to try to break down barriers and work with all networks, all promoters, to make sure the biggest fights happen. It's for the fans and for the fighters to get their money. What say you about that now?
Okay, you know what, Coach? In theory, that is a great initiative. That is certainly a great mission statement. I don't know how realistic it is, because if you're ESPN, do you want all your best content when it comes to boxing to be in the middle of Sunday afternoon in the Middle East? I don't, and here's the thing, and I've written about this, I don't know how healthy it is for the sport of boxing that if you're going to take all your big events out of the UK, because the British still come to boxing in droves.
They do.
Okay, boxing is still very much a major sport in England, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yeah.
It is. So I truly think that any AJ Usyk fight, I would much rather have that in Wembley Stadium than in the Middle East. I think it'd be much better for the fans.
Yeah.
And as someone who's an American that has been able to go to a lot of fights as a media member, I know how special it is for fans to go to a big night of boxing that they can afford in the United States, whether it's at the Staples Center, Barclays Center, or at the MGM Grand. That's how you create more fans. But if you're just going to systematically ship every single fight overseas to the Middle East, I'm not so sure you can grow the sport that way, Coach.
Yeah, you're right about that. It's going to be very difficult to grow the sport. Now, for the fighters to get paid the money they want, that'd be good for them. You know what I mean? I would think so. I don't know exactly how much the Saudis are paying per fight. I hear that Jake Paul, they made some good money. They're getting like a certain percentage of the pay-per-view. After everybody clears, get their cut. I think what Jake Paul is doing in boxing is pretty good, to be honest with you. Do I look at him as a real boxer? No. But what I'm saying is, from a business standpoint, I like what he's doing. And also, Steve, I think that a lot of me having a marketing background, understanding social media, keyword research, algorithms very well, I think a lot of these fighters today, and I told Terence Crawford this when I spoke to him in Omaha, Nebraska, I'm like, man, y'all don't understand the power of this social media. You can really, really utilize this social media, let people see your personality. I was at the gym. This dude was laughing, kikiing, playing, talking. Like, it's shocking because when you don't see that side of him. You know what I mean? But I had to go to Omaha. I was there for 4 days. I had to go to Omaha, be around all of those brothers there to understand that city. And when you go there, I don't know if you've been there. If you go there and just get the feel of it, I get it now. I get it now. Huge chip on your shoulder, Omaha, Nebraska, underdog. People, defecate. They talk bad about us, this and that. Crawford feels slighted. He has a huge chip on his shoulder. They read every press clipping. He probably got a wall. Bro, I'm dead. I'm not being funny. Like I think between and shout out to Bo Mac, shout out to Red, shout out to Saul, shout out to Bernie the Boxer, shout out to Bud. I'm pretty sure they got a wall somewhere. And TT, shout out to TT. They probably have a wall somewhere with all of the press clippings. Like he told me, all them dudes who talk bad about me and on YouTube and social media, he said, I'll never get them dudes an interview. Why would I get them an interview? He made
that clear last week, Coach.
Yeah, he said, why would I? He told me to my face, why would I give them an interview? And they supposed to be for their own people, black people. He said, it's my own people that's attacking me. It's my own people that's saying derogatory. This is what he told me. I interviewed him. This is what he told me.
Coach, you know what I found interesting?
Yeah.
And I used to say this 3-4 years ago, and certain people hate me for it, but I didn't give a shit. I hated when people would say about Terence Crawford that he's working for the white man. As if somehow that's like this terrible thing. Never mind, he had one of the most favorable deals in all of boxing, right? He's been one of the top 4 or 5 fighters in the world in terms of how lucrative his career has been.
Right.
But what I did not like is he's working for the white man. Okay. And so I used to tweet this and then people hate me to this day.
That's from the conscious community.
I would actually, and I told this to someone in Crawford's camp. We're in New York at Jimmy's Corner. I said, next time someone says that, you ought to ask them this question. And I've asked the question. I'd say, okay, for all of you saying that Terence Crawford is wrong for working with the white man, show me your pay stub, rub out what you're making because that's not our business. But let's see, who do you work for? Who's your boss?
Exactly. And see, these guys come from, a lot of these guys come from the conscious community. And this is what it is. And this came from the LDBC. They want to come with the pro-black, this and that, yada, yada, yada. And that's fine. You want to be revolutionaries. You want to be the YouTube Huey P. Newton. You want to be the YouTube Marcus Garvey, the YouTube Malachi York. Fine, so be it. But the reality of the situation is, you have a white boss yourself. YouTube is owned by a white company, Google, and when you get your direct deposits from Google AdSense, it's coming from the very same white people who you are saying that you don't like this particular fighter because he's working for the white man. Last time I checked,
Coach,
go ahead.
And Coach, BLK Prime is, I believe it's a quote unquote black company, so he makes a deal with them to get paid very well, and all of a sudden, it's not about him getting his bag. It's not about him working, with his own people. I'm like, well, wait a minute. This guy can't win then.
Yeah, no, he can't.
He cannot win in your eyes.
Nah. What it is, and I tell you, these guys are not boxing fans. Listen, Steve, I understand that mindset. And I tell people time and time again, that used to be me. I was in the Nation of Islam. I was very, very narrow-minded. I was very racist. I was very closed-minded myself. I lacked critical thinking skills. I started developing that as time went on. When I started developing critical thinking skills, I'm like, wait a minute, man, some of this stuff ain't making sense. And this is what's going on. This is why I talk the way I talk online, because I understand it. That was me. I was very emotionally reactive. The mental gymnastics that I had to go through in order to break certain things down. Well, I'm going to support this person who look like me, but this other dude over here, he'll cool Uncle Tom sell out. So when I hear these guys say this online, I understand them very well, because that was me in 91, 92, 93, 94, all throughout the 90s, all throughout the first half of the 2000s. I snapped out of my delusion in 2016. So I was deluded for like about 25 years. I was, deluded. But let me get these super chats out the way. Shout out to the Axiom.
Yeah.
Hey, okay.
He said, is Tom Brown out of the picture? He said, can we see Richard Schaefer and eye him in your night soon? What do you think, Steve?
Okay. Tom Brown is the head of TGB, which is basically more or less the in-house promoter for the large majority of PBC shows. I don't think he's out of the picture. I think that there was an announcement from Andy Ruiz that his contract with TGB ran out, but he's still with Al Heyman. I don't expect Tom Brown to go anywhere. His daughter, Brittany Goosen, does a lot of work for the PBC in terms of logistics. So I don't think that's going to affect anything there. And as for Richard Schaefer and Al Heyman, at one point, they were very closely aligned. I believe that relationship has changed the last 3-4 years, and he went off to Probellum.
Right.
And I don't know what's going on with that company. But I don't expect them to be Peaches and Herb and reunite anytime soon.
Reunited, and it feels so good. Hey, that was the song there, boy. Peaches and Herb. Peaches and Herb. Hey, shout out to Bless 365. Hey, okay. She's dropping that quarter of a dub. She said, "Hi, Steve. How do you feel about Wilder Fury 4?"
God, Bless, I wouldn't mind it, but in an era when fighters fight so often, I don't know if I want to see that fight again. Furious of boxing, where we get like 10 of them, or Police Academy, which almost had like 7 too many. I wouldn't be completely opposed to it, Bless, but I would like to see Usyk fight Fury, AJ get in the mix, and then if we get around to a 4th chapter, I get it. But one of the things about today's game that I don't like, guys, is that when fighters only fight once or twice a year, I'd like to see them fight different guys. There's not enough opponent variation in my view. So again, Wilder Fury, I'm not completely against it, but I would like to see them mix up with other guys before they circle back to it.
Shout out to Christopher, man. Shout out to Christopher dropping that quarter of a dub super chat. If you want a question, you got to drop $5. That's the price of entry if you want to ask Steve Kim a question. It has to be $5 or above.
Yeah, so Steve Kim is live. So drop a 5.
Yeah, anything less than $5, I'm not going to address it. Shout out to Christopher again. Hey, okay. Dropping out half a dub. He said Fury earned his stripes to mock the bomb squad phrase. He said, remember Wilder's long reign started to build racism, and Fury's goal was to shut that down. And he did. Don't be mad, our brother failed us. Okay.
Coach, can I say something as someone that's actually kind of known Deontay from a distance since I first interviewed him in 2014? He actually fought on the undercard of Sean Porter Kell Brook at the StubHub Center. I actually think Wilder's a decent individual. I think he feels a lot of pressure to perform for certain people that he's aligned himself with and to stay on code. I actually like Deontay. I think he's meant a lot to the game, brought some color and some excitement to the heavyweight division. He was an American face to the glamour division of the sport. But sometimes he says things because I think he thinks he has to say them without realizing the ramifications of them. I'm not going to lie to you. I am not excusing what he has said on certain points, but I do understand why he might be doing them, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, I don't understand it either. I think, me personally, I think he got caught up with these guys online, these certain channels online. And there's something that a brother told me that was very, very wonderful. That Wilder has a beautiful story. How he got started in the boxing, he started fighting for his daughter, stuff like that. I forgot this guy's name. It was a white guy, old white guy. He said he called him Pops. And I got the video. I got to say he hugged the guy at the restaurant. He said this is one of the guys who believed in me, who got me started in the boxing, who helped me get into boxing. Then he ended up meeting JD's at the gym and stuff like that. It was an entire interview. I have the actual video. I have to find it. And Wilder had a beautiful story. The great American champion. He came from nothing. He didn't know how to fight. He fought for a noble cause. He could have just wrote that story to heavenly heights. At some point in time, I think he hooked up with these online revolutionaries online. He hooked up with these YouTube Huey P. Newtons, and they kind of helped like radicalize them a little bit. Yeah. And you would think that, hey, man, Wilder represents us. He's one of us and stuff like that. Well, wait a minute. There's a lot of white people that was in this guy's life that really helped him get to the point where he's at. And these guys painted a narrative about Wilder that wasn't true. You see what I'm saying? And they, trust me, I come from this community. I know that mindset very, very well. I know it better than these guys who's playing it right now. And when he did that, and then I think what happened was when it was something about the Tyson Fury fight. At some point in that fight with him and Fury, he decided to make it racial. he decided to make it racial. He started talking about, not the first fight. First fight, he said, not the first fight, but the second fight, leading up to the second fight, Radio Raheem, to this day, the famous, to this day quote, and you know what I mean? My people been fighting for 400 years, your people too. He said, what do you mean by your people? He said, your people too, bro. Your people too, bro. You ain't just sit here and you say you don't know what I'm talking about and all that stuff there.
You know why you just sit here and you don't know what I'm talking about?
He said that to Radio Raheem. He said, man, I'm up out of here, man. Let's go. Like, it got real. And then when you start looking on social media, the group that he decided to team up with, that was right down their alley. Because that's all they talked about. They wanted, that was right down their alley. So the racial narrative that they came with, it was just crazy. And I think he got caught up in that. All these dudes is broke, ain't got no goddamn money. You get what I'm saying? So I'm like, man, I don't know why you following a bunch of broke dudes on YouTube. Like, these dudes ain't got no money. They broke in the motherfucker. You see what I'm saying? So,
I don't believe for 1 second, based on who's around them, people like JD's and my old friend Shelly Finkel, I don't believe Deontay is racist. I really don't.
No, they're not. No, why are they not racist?
And just based on his history, I don't think. I mean, he may have to play a role, but he's a colorful guy.
Yeah.
I like the whole bomb squad thing and him knocking the hell out of people, coming back. And I just wish he'd fight more.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost like we haven't seen him the last 2 years outside of Fury fights, to be honest with you. And I'd like to see him fight other guys. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens coming off of this trip from the Middle East.
I definitely don't believe Wilder's racist. I think he been into that. And from what I see, and because I used to study these guys very, very well, that entire group. I don't study them anymore because I don't have to. Their message is still the same. And I think that's what it was. That's what it was. Wilder has a beautiful story, man. He came from nothing, from Alabama. There's nothing. I've been to Alabama. There's nothing in Alabama. Nothing. You know what I mean? And this is no disrespect to Alabama. There's nothing in Alabama, right? And he came from that Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I think that was named after Indian Native Americans. Tuscaloosa, Alabama. So I'm like, bro, like, man, he's a multi-millionaire. He'll never be broke. He'll never be broke again. And on YouTube, a lot of these guys, they get an opportunity to live their lives vicariously through Wilder. And if we can get them on our show doing an interview, it's going to help us get clicks and views, and then that's going to increase our super chat money or our ad revenue for this month. You get what I'm saying? Because that's what it's all about. I'm telling you, that's what it's all about. Steve, I know you've been rocking with me for a minute. Let me, I don't want to keep you on too long.
I got all the time in the world for you, Coach.
Okay.
Keep going.
Okay, cool. Shout out to Christopher.
Hey, okay.
He said police brutality was the trigger. I don't know what that. I don't know what you mean by that. Police brutality was the trigger, but the fact of the matter is, I get it very, very well what's going on. I want to pivot a little bit. Adrian Broner. I dropped the video today about AB. AB, he did an interview with Arkham Barack. Shout out to those guys. I met those guys in Omaha, Nebraska as well. At the Terence Crawford after party, David Avenesi after party. He said that he didn't get a check for the past 6 years with the PBC. And then he just came back yesterday and he clarified what he meant, right? So a lot of the people who are Haymanites and they're pro PBC, they talk bad about AB because they felt like he was slighted Al Heyman. And he did. He just said, man, I still love Al Steven. I talk to them every day. But anything that doesn't push their narrative that makes Al Heyman look bad in any type of way, a guy who they've never met, they don't know what he looks like, they don't know what he sounds like. The only picture you have of Al Heyman are old pictures. I've never seen, this is a two-part question. I've never seen anything like this before in my life. Normally, when you have guys who have a cult-like following, these are people who are really good, eloquent speakers. They have a way with words. They have a way of mesmerizing you with the way they speak. Shout out to Malik El Shabazz, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King. Just any of the great leaders of the past. Whether they're white or black, these guys have a way of talking and getting a following and getting people to get behind their message. Al Heyman, you don't know what he looked like. He doesn't talk. He doesn't show his face. But somehow, magically, he was able to develop a cult-like following online, and they are willing to threaten you about Al Heyman with murder. They are willing to threaten you with violence. They tell you don't show up to the fights. They tell you they have shooters. I've never seen anything like this. What say you about what my breakdown of this?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've been in the crosshairs of a lot of these guys because years ago, when he was running HBO Boxing and getting guys like Andre Berto $1 million paydays for fighting Freddie Hernandez, it all is a byproduct of, number one, he was an advisor to Floyd Mayweather. And so these guys all live vicariously through Floyd and the money team. They actually thought they were part of the money team.
Right.
Never mind that Floyd's first 35 fights or so were with Bob Arum.
Well, Bob Arum, yeah.
The Top Rank's the one that developed Mayweather. You talked about that.
Yeah, I talked about that.
But they really did have a messiah complex as it related to Al and then the organization. I thought it was very interesting how that dynamic played out. And I'm saying to myself, you know, I wasn't there completely for the run of Don King, but I do know this. When I grew up in the 80s and 90s, Don King was at the top of his game, and he didn't even get this type of adulation from that same crowd. And Don King put on historic cards. I'm talking about cards with like 3 pay-per-view fights that had championship attached to it with great fights.
Right. And
then 3 other fights off the television that were really good championship fights with Ricardo Lopez. I'm thinking I could understand it if Al was putting on those sorts of fights or fight cards. He's not. But I think that this is my hypothesis. Al Heyman became a symbol for them of leadership and unity. And as you said, a certain type of agenda, which I don't think was ever true, to be honest with you. I really don't. This is business.
Right.
So that's what I think. And I think it's always been strange that people were caping up for a guy that I don't think would even acknowledge them in public.
Yeah.
It's a strange dynamic, Coach.
Yeah, me coming from that community, we've always had a messiah complex, and we're looking for a savior. You know what I mean? And this is just reality of the situation. Me coming up, even when I was in Nation of Islam, we always looking for a savior, someone that's going to come save us. We've always had messiah complexes. In the black community, we love worshiping personalities. I just never seen a personality that you don't even know what he look like, don't know what he sound like. Like, it literally is like it's an invisible guy. And when we hear his name, oh my gosh, anybody say anything about him? If you're black and you don't say the right thing, I can't believe, I never seen, I'm like, dude, okay, I can see if he was Don King and he come in there and he say, we do this for other people, by the people, other people, because we come from the people, we love the people, we represent the people, and if you represent the people will represent you. If you love the people, work with the people, help the people, and do the things that the people want you to do, the people will take care of you. Don King had the gift of gab in order to convince people, but he never had a following nowhere near like this. This guy's an invisible man, like Casper the Ghost. And I'm like, God damn, like, okay, hold on, homie. You want to cause great physical bodily harm to me because of my opinion of your Messiah that you can't see? You listen. So I never heard of that. I never heard of that before. Shout out to BX Mike for dropping that dub on your boy. He said for Steve, what's Sabrio? He said what's Sabrio Matia's promotional situation? That's one part of the question.
Okay, and I also think that the Triller Jinx hit 3 knockdown rule. I have some news on that. Okay. Subriel Matias is with the PBC. Okay. His last 3-4 fights have been with that organization. I believe he's absolutely the boogeyman. I wrote about it today on my K9's Corner. Nobody wants to face that guy. I'm just telling you, unless you are a guy like Regis Prograis who needs to do something big and no one else will face him,
right?
Matias is the boogeyman, but he is aligned with PBC. And some news on the 3 knockdown rule. I know it's been a while. Go ahead. Call it a comeback, but looks like we are rounding third, headed towards home. We will be back sometime in mid-March.
Okay, cool, man. Yeah,
that's
man.
The update.
Got it. We got to have the 3 knockdown rule back. You and Mario Lopez. You know the crazy part about it, Steve. Someone of your background, right? You know the sport of boxing very, very well. And what I notice about on social media, I call these guys social media boxing fans because these guys talk about everything but boxing. They some of them, they worship some of these fighters. I was listening to a live. I'm not gonna say this guy's name, but I was just, I don't listen to a lot of these guys anymore. But I was just listening to one last night just to be curious. And one guy was saying, we coming for the belts. Was talking about in the lightweight division. He was talking about Shakur Stevenson, Devin Haney. We want them belts, and that's what we're going to do. And they called Bill Haney name, every name under the sun, called him a bitch. Use a PN. When I see you, I'm going to pull up, this and that. You better click the link, come on the panel. Called him a hoe. They called him every name in the book. And I remember when I interviewed Bill, I asked him, I said, dude, why do you subject yourself to this? You're a multimillionaire. Why do you come down to the land of peasants? You know what I mean? But he likes coming down to the land of peasants. But I noticed, I'm like, all of these guys is probably in their 20s. These are young guys. More than likely, they don't know who their father is. They probably grew up in a single family home. And, this is just the era of these young guys in their 20s and 30s today. And I'm like, it's the highest level of ignorance that I've ever seen. And I said, you know what, man, this shit ain't got nothing to do with no boxing. This has to do with everything other than boxing. These dudes want to be digital. Yeah. They want to be digital gangbangers. They want to be, they want to be Bloods and Crips, gangster disciples. They want to be vice lords, YouTube vice lords. All from behind the keyboard and a camera. And an avatar. Now, these guys not going to do anything because they are cowards in nature. They tell you better not show up to fights that they don't have the money to go to pay for. They go to. You're telling me not to show up to a fight that you're not going to be able to go to because you broke? You get what I'm saying? They live with their mothers. They broke his head. I know these guys very well. I'm telling you, the psychology of these guys is crazy. So this is why I say there's a difference between YouTube boxing fans and actual boxing fans. Shout out. Go ahead.
You know what's interesting? And I think you'll find this as you start to go to more fights. The people that actually go to fights, I can honestly tell you 99.999% of my interactions with fans is positive. Yeah. It's fun. It's friendly. You take pictures. They want to talk boxing with you. The negative stuff comes online. Yeah. Yeah. And from people that would never say that to your face, even if they know who you are and you're around them. And quite frankly, I don't want to get into it with anybody. Yeah. Honestly, I actually got something to lose. You don't. So maybe I should just walk away. Yeah. But the reality is I've met a lot of great fans. And in fact, you know what? Even on Twitter, I would say 98% of my interactions with fans are very respectful. And it's fun. And what I do now, I don't really argue with them. I just mute those people. Yeah, I don't even block them. So that's because now they get to listen to me, and I get to not listen to you. It's the greatest deal ever. Yeah, you don't want to put me up on muting, so that's what I do. I mute them, and that's it. So they be talking and stuff. I don't see nothing they say. Shout out to Drew. Hey, okay. Dropping a half a dub. Drew. He said Steve won. He said, I guess he's saying first question. He said, is Davis Garcia a super fight when neither is a A-list star? That's the first question. By the way, I like the way he gave $10 because he's asking cute questions. That Drew is a man of honor and principle. Thumbs up to Drew. And he says, okay, will this fight cross over to casual pop culture fans like previous super fights in 7 weeks with no press? No. I'll tell you what's interesting about Hagler Hearns. They went on a 21-city, 14-day press tour. They each had private planes. They flew everywhere. Coach, that fight was so big, and I'll show you YouTube links. Back then for super fights, shows like Good Morning America and the Today Show, they used to actually do remotes from those fights for 2-3 days. National news used to cover it. Big fights back then felt different because it was more important and it was bigger. Now, is Davis Garcia a super fight? By today's very low standards, it might be. But again, we are talking about two guys, neither of which I think is a real legitimate champion, fighting at a catch weight. And neither guy has ever really done a pay-per-view that's done more than 250,000 buys. So again, it's a super fight by today's lowered bar at best. Yeah. You're right, the lower bar. Again, Steve, you hit the nail right on the head, man. Hey, shout out to Drew, man, for the super chat. Malcolm Flores he said, what them boys told you, coach? Come to Memphis. Yeah. Come to Memphis. Yeah. Shout out to I am Cam. Hey, okay. Dropping that quarter of a dub on your boy. He said, one love to Steve Kim for the Peaches and Herb lyrics. My guy got vocals. He said, Coach, we got to thank Al Heyman
for making all of this possible. Steve, listen, Steve.
Thanks, Al.
Steve, you know what? I have to say this. I have to say this because I'll be remiss if I don't do this. I have to thank Almighty Al Heyman before I thank God, Jesus, Allah, Moses, Buddha, whatever deity that you serve. I have to thank him first. It's something that I noticed. When the fighters fought in Saudi Arabia yesterday, all the fighters who came up when the fight was over with, they thank God in their post-fight press conference in the ring. They say, Alhamdulillah, you know what I mean? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Allahu Akbar. They said all of those lovely things, right? I want to thank God first. But I noticed when you're a PBC fighter, they don't thank God first. They do this.
Well, I guess I got to be like everybody else and thank Al Heyman. I can quit my job now, baby. 6 figures, baby. You feel me? I'm about to
But a name. Do you have a name?
Oh, nah, I ain't got no name,
Name them names, man.
They know who they is.
Name them names, please. The names need to be named.
They know who they is.
The Mexican monster.
Yeah, that's what they do, Steve. So from this point forward, if you ever call this show, the first thing you have to say is mandatory. You have to thank Al Heyman.
So I'm going to say this right now. The next time Johnny Rice fights, and after he wins, he better thank Coach Malachi. Okay? If he's a man of honor and integrity, which I think he is, he's a very friendly fellow. Next time Johnny Rice wins a fight, he better thank you first and foremost. Okay? Let's get that very clear.
Yeah, I'll be representing for Johnny Rice hard, man. I like Johnny Rice, man. Hey, shout out to Walt from South Florida. Hey, okay. Dropping out quarter of a dub. He said met Steve several times, especially at Jimmy's Corner. He said always nice talking to him. Okay. Yeah,
Jimmy's Corner. Hey, Coach, have you been to Jimmy's Corner in New York?
No, I haven't. I've never been to New York City. I've been to New York State,
all right,
but never New
we
York
got to
City.
go to a fight there. I'm just telling you, that is the ultimate dive bar owned by the late, great Jimmy Glenn, old boxing guy. He knew Muhammad Ali. He knew Sugar Ray Robinson. And the whole bar has boxing posters and pictures. And it's a legendary place right in Manhattan. And you can get an unbelievable buzz and a hangover for like under $40. Best deal in town.
Listen, shout out to Drew. Hey, okay. Dropping out quarter of a dub. He said, Coach, ask Steve for his Emmanuel Stewart impersonation.
Okay, so the Emmanuel Stewart impersonation, I've been told, and this means a lot, when the brothers come up to me saying, hey, Steve, you do the best Emmanuel Stewart impersonation. So here it goes. All right, motherfucker, we got to throw that motherfucking right hand like a Tommy motherfucking Hearns. And I said, Lennox, listen, motherfucker, you got to throw that right hand. I don't give a fuck about nobody else. We got to drop that motherfucking right hand. So that's kind of like the Emmanuel Stewart. You got to kind of get into it. But if you don't say MFer, it's not as good. I've tried to clean Emmanuel. It's not quite as good without the MFer.
Hey, you know what? You sound just like him because that's exactly what Steve. Hey, oh man, bro, we lost.
Oh my God, Coach, the funniest moment of every HBO fight. And I knew Emmanuel very well. I was very close to him. I actually got to hang out with him in Detroit. Went to his house. It's an amazing day when I was covering the Tim Bradley Devin Alexander fight. I mean, he was like the mayor of Detroit. Everywhere he went, everybody knew him. But I loved it during every HBO fight he would call. When a certain guy would start dominating the fight, I knew this was going to happen. This is exactly what I said was going to happen. I was like, Emmanuel, the guy was a 10-1 favorite. We all fucking knew. What are you talking about? But Emmanuel's the best. Emmanuel was a great boxing man. Loved him.
Steve, okay. I have to ask you this question. This is James Like South Tony, one of my favorite fighters in the history
James
of boxing.
Like South Tony.
Now, his attitude, he had a hell of an attitude. Now, I'm not saying he had the greatest attitude in the world. I'm not going to say that. But boxing-wise, James likes out Tony, marvelous Marvin Hagler. I'm biased. I love Hagler over everybody.
Oh boy.
Roy Jones Jr. Roy Jones Jr. Carlos Monzon. Those four fighters, middleweights. Those four fighters. I like Ray Robinson better as a welterweight more so than middleweight. I think he was best.
Yeah, Coach. Ray Robinson, most of his middleweight fights, he was really a junior middleweight if you check the weight. So he may be the all-time greatest junior middleweight welterweight, although there really wasn't a junior welterweight when he fought. But so you're asking me, out of those guys, who's the best middleweight?
I mean, no, listen, this is subjective. Like, I mean, you don't have to say who's the best, but those four guys were damn.
And can't forget Bernard Hopkins. Cannot forget B-Hop. People forget how good B-Hop was when he was a little bit younger.
What about the Hulk, Julian Jackson? What about him as well?
Oh, great puncher. One of the all-time greatest punchers. He could freeze you like an abominable snowman with either hand. Unbelievable. What he did to Terry Norris in that second round, I'll never forget. The fight was on ABC. Terry Norris, first round, looked like young Ray Robinson. I said, wow, this guy's great. And then he got caught up on the rope, dropped his hands, and bang. I just literally froze him. It was unbelievable. So let's go down the list. Marvin Hagler, to me, is the best middleweight ever. Forget the number of title defenses. It's been said that he fought the toughest run before winning a title when he had to go through Philadelphia.
Yeah.
No, and he had to go through more iron than anybody. Yeah. And he really should have been a champion for at least 3-4 years longer. Okay? He really should have had about 25 title defenses if it wasn't for the politics. Yeah. James Toney, I love, my favorite fighter after Marvin Hagler from the 80s to the 90s. Yeah. Last full-time American fighter to take tune-up fights and stay busy fights and non-title fights in between title fights. I wish more fighters would do that today. But really, his best days were at 68.
You talking about Tony?
I think he's actually one of the greatest super middleweights ever.
Super middleweight. You're right. No, you're
Roy
right.
Jones.
You're right.
Again, Roy didn't have a long middleweight run either.
He didn't.
Roy was maybe the greatest super middleweight ever. I think Roy, I don't care what happened. I think with Calzaghe, he was not in his prime. I still think Roy Jones the best super middleweight ever. That's just my opinion, okay? Yeah. Bernard Hopkins, top 5 middleweight of all time. The most disciplined human being I have ever seen. Every time I go to a fight hotel and Golden Boy's involved, I've always said to fans, if you want to meet Bernard Hopkins at 8 o'clock in the morning, go to the fitness center because he is there. He makes monks look undisciplined. I've never seen a guy who adhere to a fighter's lifestyle, even now. Right. Because I've eaten lunch with him where if it's a fried chicken and he doesn't know he ordered fried chicken on a sandwich, I've actually seen him get a knife and a fork and just scrape off all the breading. It was like he was doing surgery. I was like, God, this guy really is disciplined. So those guys really stand. Monzon certainly in the Mount Rushmore of middleweights. Big, strong guy, really good puncher. The thing that hurts him a little bit is that he kind of fought in an era where there weren't a lot of great other middleweights. He fought guys like Emil Griffith, Montekia Napoli, who's more of a welterweight. But I certainly think all of those guys are among some of the all-time greatest.
Man, Steve, thank you so much, man. I got to get ready to take my son to karate.
Absolutely. You got better things to do than to waste your day with me. But look, I want to appreciate you having me on. I want to thank your audience for putting up with me, and we'll do it again. And by the way, let me know when you're coming out to L.A. because you are definitely invited. You're going to get a seat. I'll be in L.A.
As a matter of fact, I'm going to look at the calendar now. I will be in L.A. the 3rd week of March. Next month, I will be in L.A. I'm going to tell you
All
right
now.
So
we are going to schedule our monthly boxing dinner at the world famous Phil Trainees. You, me, Drew, and some other boxing folks. Doug Fisher comes. Rudy Hernandez comes. Manny Robles comes. Jerry Cazares comes, who's a manager of Sinicia Estrada. And we chop it up. It's just Boxing Palooza 4.0. Wine, women, and song, all that good stuff. You're definitely invited. In fact, you are coming. You have no other choice.
I definitely be. I'm looking at the calendar now. What day you guys are doing this?
It depends. We're going to work it around your schedule.
Okay, I tell you what.
So let us know what day. And we're going to work it around your schedule.
I'll give you a call and let you know. But I'm looking at the calendar now. I know that I'm leaving. I'm going to San Antonio on the 8th to Kid Austin's training camp, and then 2 weeks later, I'm getting on the plane and I'll probably fly to L.A. and I'll be in L.A. for 4 days from the 22nd to the 22nd to the 26th. I'll get
so we'll make it happen one of those days.
I get there Wednesday, and then I leave Sunday.
Okay, we're gonna make it definitely happen one of those days. We'll hang out, we'll have some fun, and want to thank your audience for having me. And Coach, I'll keep listening, brother. You stay well. Have a great rest of the day.
Yes, sir. Shout out to the legendary Steve Kim. Let's give him a round of applause.
Man, I'm out of here, bro. Let's go.